Have a full board and quorum. If anybody would like to join me in Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I guess I reversed that call to order and pledge. Thank you.
We won't hold it against you.
We have agenda presented in front of us. We have, just to review the agenda, we've got public comment, unfinished business, new business, approval of the minutes, discussion, and then adjournment currently published on the meeting. If we could have a review and any modifications or a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented if Brian has no changes. Second.
Motion second, all in support? Aye.
Aye.
Great. At this point in the meeting, we have opportunity for public comment. There's anybody in the public, either online or in the audience, who would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda tonight. So we have a few things on the agenda. If anybody's here tonight to speak to the board or to the community on anything that's not on the agenda, now would be the time. Anybody in the audience? No? Brian, do we know, do we have people online, or it doesn't look like we have any? Nobody online? All right. So I will close public comment. Next order of business is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so moving along quickly. We have 3 items in new business. First is the election of the officers for the zoning board. Second and third are 2 cases, 2 applicants before the township, and then that would conclude our new business. So, Brian, maybe you can give us the procedure. We've got election of the officers annually. We didn't have a January meeting, so we've got a February meeting. We've got a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary. No treasurer.
No.
We need funds. So I guess at this point we'll take nominations for the 3 positions. Anybody has any thoughts or comments?
I'll make a motion to keep the same, Jim, you as chairman, Brian as co-chairman, and I'm secretary. I'll make that motion.
Great, appreciate that. We have a motion. Do we have second or discussion?
Second.
Or motion second. Any discussion? If not, should we take a roll call vote?
No.
Okay. Motion to maintain the officers as they have been in the past year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Looking forward to another good year. All right. I'll give an overview of how we conduct the meeting with the 2 items. Again, we've got 2 different items. We'll call those. I'll call the case number. I'll read it into the record and outline the 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever number of variances that are being requested. I'll then ask the applicant to come up to the podium to give your name and address, and then to just really walk us through what it is your application is asking for, whether it's a setback or a height variance or whatever the case. Really what we're trying to do here is to understand what your objectives are, what type of variance is being sought, what are the reasons for that being sought, and then exactly how will that impact the property, the adjacent properties, our ordinance, and so forth. I will ask then that anybody who does speak, again, gives their name as they speak at the podium, as well as if you could sign in, if you haven't signed in on your way in, if you could sign in on your way out tonight, just so that as we transcribe the meeting minutes, we've got all the information. After you make your presentation, the board will have some questions. We're really, again, just trying and understand the objectives of the variance requests. We'll then open it up to members of the public for any additional comments. We may ask the applicant some additional questions. We'll bring it back to the board, have a discussion between us, and continue to ask questions, then ultimately make some type of a decision on each case. So with that, I'd like to call case number 22-001, Tanya Ross, the petitioner, requesting 2 variances. The first is a 22-foot side yard setback variance from section 5.06A4, and the second is a 35.21 foot lot width variance from section 4.9D, table 4.9 of the zoning ordinance. and this is to construct a pole barn at the property at 9770 Hadley Road, which is in the R1R Rural Residential zoning of our township. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Tanya Ross. This is Craig McDonald. We live at 9770 Hadley Road. We're just trying to put up a large structure so we can have somewhere to store our stuff. We don't have any large, we don't have a garage. There's a small shed which has been taken over by all the mice that needs to be taken down. So, I mean, we're young, we want to get an RV when we're older, and we want somewhere to park our cars and all of our lawn equipment.
Okay, great. So you're on Hadley Road. It looks like you're kind of on, I guess, it would be the east side. You've got a very long parcel. You submitted a survey, so your property is roughly 165 foot wide by over 1,300 feet. Your home looks like it's set back a substantial distance. The pole barn would be behind that, and you do have an existing shed, but you said that that shed will come down?
Yeah,
That's
that will,
correct.
yeah.
Okay, great. I didn't see it in the packet, maybe it's in here. Is there any description of what the construction will be like of the pole barn, or?
I can give you a drawing. We're still in talks with the builder, trying to, iron out
Thank
some
you.
final
I can't
details.
do that now. Just looking at a couple ideas of
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, he wanted a very large deposit, to start it, and we don't have everything ironed out, so I wanted to make sure this gets approved before we start going forward, because if you guys deny me, I'm back to square one, and this guy's got this large deposit of mine. So I'm just trying to be smart about everything.
Okay. But it would be concrete floor, kind of typical pole barn type construction?
Right now, it would be just
dry storage.
yeah,
Okay.
there'll be no concrete.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't have the money for that right now,
okay.
Yeah.
so
All
just
right.
trying to get it up.
But it is a pole barn
It would be a pole barn, yeah.
Yes.
in the planned siding?
Yeah, it would be metal siding, metal roof.
Okay,
Yeah, there's some farm equipment that we want to buy, and we have nowhere to put that as well, so that's why we just want it for dry storage, so we have somewhere to put that, leaving it outside in the
Yeah.
elements.
okay.
And again, that other,
Yeah, we're just planning for the future.
that small shed that we have, it's not very large, it's maybe like a 10 by, 6, and the mice, it's just
Yeah,
falling
it's
apart, and mice have taken over everything in it. We've lost a lot of stuff
They've
because of
destroyed
it,
it.
so that's why we're hoping to do this.
Okay,
For long term, because we don't plan on moving.
Yeah.
We like where we
sounds
live.
good, sounds good. Well, in terms of the variance requests, there's two of them. The first is a side yard, a 22-foot side yard setback. Typically, in the R1R, the ordinance requires a 50-foot side yard setback. You're asking to build the structure 22 foot closer to the property line than would be permitted by the ordinance, so 28 foot from the property line.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that, yeah, that adds up, okay. 28 foot from the property line. The second setback, or the second variance request is for a 35.21 foot lot width variance, and this really isn't a change to your property. In the R1R, typically a lot is 200 foot wide. Your lot historically is 165 foot. It sounds like, slightly different than that. And so the second variance request, Brian, if I understand right, is really to bring it into, essentially get it on record that it's a non-conforming lot.
Yeah, correct. We don't have any history or records that we could find that already, granted this approval. So, that's why this variance is really to make it whole. Only helps in the long run if whenever you do sell,
Yeah,
that it's a legal lot of record.
right.
I guess before I open up to my colleagues on the board, my one question is, 165 foot is still by most standards, still a wide lot. The pole barn is going to be 36 foot wide by 50 foot long, 1,800 square feet, and you're asking to put it 22 foot closer to the property line than the ordinance would typically require. Is there a reason for that? Is there a reason why it couldn't be?
Yeah,
50
we've
foot?
got a lot of elevation change in our property. And if we were to put it right in the center, there would be a lot of excavating that need to be done and also a lot of tree removal. So just the cost would just be so much higher.
We also have, it's odd, but we have a lot of huge stones,
A lot of
boulders
boulders.
as well. And they, for some reason, had put it down almost the middle of the property where we pretty much want the pole barn, almost to where the end of the property is. Because we back up to Independence Oaks, and there's literally
There's a
line of
line.
stones. It's like 3 acres of stones lined, and that's one of the reasons why we were trying to do it where we wanted, because we had an old garden there and it's absolutely perfect to put a pole barn. We had
It's
it
a
was
nice
like
flat
yeah.
area. We wouldn't need to do a whole lot extra with excavating and tree removal, and, that's just added cost we don't have. So,
Yeah, there's probably, I'm guessing like a 6-foot elevation from where we want the pole barn to be to where the middle would actually be.
yeah.
It's
It's
you
quite a
know,
significant
it's a lot.
change.
Okay.
So, and that would also dig into our septic field.
Yeah, and that's true
So-
too. It would be awfully close to the septic field as well.
Don't
Okay.
really wanna mess
Alright.
with that, because that,
Yeah.
again, adds more cost.
Right, no, I appreciate that. All right, good, that was the one question I had. Why don't we start on my
And you can't
left
see
here?
it from the aerial, but, yeah.
Brian, do you have any questions or comments?
You guys pretty much covered my questions. I was, gonna ask about the septic field. I saw it on the drawing, and I think I can see it on the overhead. There's a clearing next to your neighbor's lot.
Yeah,
The farther back you go in the lot, does it drop off further as you get close to the park? Does it go downhill?
It's slight,
yeah, it slowly starts to go down.
yeah, not anything too crazy. I'm thinking, I'm guessing maybe a few feet from where we wanted to put the barn to the end of the property. It's not anything drastic like it is, where the septic field would be next to where we want the pole barn to be. It's much more of a drop.
Yeah, if we go like
Go
further
from
back
there.
into the woods, it's not different, but again, there'd be more cost to excavate and take trees down
And at that point
all
too, it
that.
would be, where we want it's kind of far from the house on its own, but to go any further back into like the wooded part of our property would be quite far from the house.
And the other question would be the neighbors, obviously, the sight line really doesn't affect either one of their houses. They're closer to the road than your house.
Yeah, both the neighbors, I talked to both of
The one neighbor
them.
has a extremely large outbuilding from the overhead with, lots of cars and stuff parked around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a
The
business.
other neighbor, I can't tell if that's
He's got a small
is that a small
garage.
structure in the middle of the lot? Looks
Yeah,
it's
Like
like
it's
a
got
small-
a blue roof or something?
So that would be,
Yeah,
that
It's a
would be
small
almost
garage.
next to where our house is.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's another garage that he has.
Okay. So both your neighbors have outbuildings and
Yes.
yeah.
have you had discussions with your neighbors? Have there been any comments received by the township?
Brian,
Mr.
I should
we
point
do
out,
have, in the packet, there's a neighbor consent form that she had signed by both neighbors, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
both neighbors are fine with it.
Actually,
We
I
talked to
remember
them
seeing
and,
that now that I asked it.
And we've had no comments.
Okay, that's all.
Ken, any questions or thoughts?
The only thing that I want to ask you is, what if we asked you to move it over 2 more feet or something, or 5 more feet? Are you really set on this position because there is something in the way if you move it 5 more feet over?
Mhm.
Even just a
Oh.
matter of a few feet where we
Yeah.
have it staked out at would be more excavating that would need to be done.
yeah, it goes into that boulder, got like this long stretch of just boulders and rocks and elevation change that goes up to the septic field.
Yeah, it's hard to see in the photo there that you have on screen, but, pretty much that would be like the north wall of the pole barn. Almost immediately outside of that, the elevation starts going up to where the septic field then is, so.
Yeah, and I wanna be able to have enough room to walk on that side just in case of anything or whatnot. I don't wanna put it like right up against where the boulders are.
Okay, well, I just want to also thank you for talking to your neighbors.
Oh, yeah, we
That's a
love our
good idea.
neighbors. They're
Yep.
great. They're
Yeah.
great people.
It's
They're
important.
I love them. They're awesome people.
Thank you.
I feel very blessed to have good
You know, and
neighbors.
with putting where we wanted the pole barn as well, the way our drive is set up, if you can envision we would extend the driveway to where it would almost go straight to the pole barn.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So it would be, nice, and wouldn't have to spend as much money to get that drive extended,
Yeah.
It's a straight
so
shot.
a different
Yeah.
area
Straight
of
shot,
the
yep, that
property.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Jim Sharl, any additional questions or comments?
Very few. With the addition of the approval letters from both the north and south property owners, I see no adverse impact on specifically the southern property because they're closest to it, but their home is much farther to the north, or excuse me, to the west. Generally speaking, finances don't become an awful strong part of zoning ordinances. But I understand what you're talking about, and I understand that the property goes up as you go to the north.
Yes,
Mhm, it does.
that's correct.
Yeah, it's very hilly over there. It doesn't look like it, but it is.
No, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Jim. Alan?
I have a few questions. You keep mentioning your septic system. Is this an engineered septic system that you have at the house?
You know what, I'm not sure. The house was built in the early 70s, and we couldn't find anything at Oakland County when we bought the house registering it, so I have no idea.
Do
I'm
you,
going off what the neighbors are telling me.
do you
Yeah.
pump your sewage up to the septic system, or is it a gravity?
Gravity.
So the area around the house must be higher then.
Yeah, it's up a little bit higher than where we would want to put the pole barn. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so if you can, like, I don't know, I think it's like maybe 60 or 100. Do you mind if I walk up to one of the screens up here?
Yeah, please.
I just wanted, so like, around here, the property's all like, it's all level here, but as it starts like towards the southern neighbor, it does start to drop off a little bit, so it would drop off around here. And so this whole area, and then the septic field up here is all that much higher than
Yeah, it's all raised.
this edge here, and it starts to drop right here, and that's where we wanted the pole barn. So again, the elevation difference would be, I'm guessing, like a 6-foot difference between here and up here. So that's where the excavating,
Right.
come into play there if we had to put it in the middle of that, of,
The property.
the property there, so. And I also don't know, I mean, you would know if you can even put a structure that close to a septic field. Because if we put it in the middle there, we'd either have to go before or in front, in
Right.
front of or in back of it, but if we were to put it centered, it would be very close to that septic field.
Understood.
I'm talking within
We
10
would
feet
disturb it. We would disturb
probably.
it. We wouldn't
Yeah.
even have it
Yeah.
moved if we put it in the middle of our
Here,
property.
why don't we keep going through our questions?
I don't know if you've ever talked to your neighbors about the stone row, but you'll find that those are just typically on the surface. It's when the farmers cleared the fields, they just piled them up. They're easy to move with a dozer. You're gonna have to have a dozer in there anyway.
Right.
I look at the aerial that we have on the computer, I think it's the same as that one, and all your neighbors, probably the more recent structures that have been built have conformed, it appears, to the 50-foot side yard. I know that area pretty well out there. We've had a couple cases before us in the last few years. But tree removal and things like that is always part of the building when you have a wooded lot. You keep mentioning the grade changes, and Mr. Ward, your surveyor, never furnished a topo. If you were gonna mention your grade deficiencies or whatever the problem is out there with your topo, we should have had in the packet a topo of
I'm
your
not sure what that
property
is.
to substantiate what you're telling us, because we have nothing here that tells us. As far as looking at here and out there,
Yeah.
it's pretty well flat, A few feet here and there doesn't make any difference, because you're gonna have to grade anyway
Right.
to establish a flat grade for the barn.
Yeah, understanding. I'm just trying to offset the price of lumber right now.
No,
You know,
price
the
of lumber's
prices
gonna
are
go higher than the
crazy high.
pandemic, so don't worry about it.
The,
Okay. This is just the most flat part of our property, so I'm just trying to,
So
you know-
what our role here is to try and, understand our ordinance and how it may impact individual lots that have what we describe as a hardship, something unique or difficult. Understanding finances, understanding, all those different things, certainly real-life issues, and we appreciate that, but as it relates to the ordinance, we're not able to factor in, financial costs or things. What we do factor in are unusual circumstances to the land, challenging topography, landmark trees, those types of things. So that's why these kind of series of questions are coming. So certainly appreciate the cost of lumber and all those other things, but in terms of our ability to make decisions, we certainly can be empathetic to that, but it can't be part of our decision process.
Understand.
right, understand.
All right.
So, yeah, that's why I wanted to come before the board and make sure this was approved before I go
Yeah.
further, because, then I'm back to square one if you guys don't approve, so.
Well, what is
Hoping you approve.
interesting, and we're gonna open up to the public, and we'll bring it back to the board in a minute, but certainly within this zoning district, your property is entitled to have a pole barn. It's a question of not whether or not we can have a pole barn, but the position of the pole barn on the property, which of course, as you've
Right.
pointed out, may have impacts to other things. So
Right.
that's really what we're wrestling with here tonight. With that being said, is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this case? Seeing none, doesn't look like we have anybody else online. Gentlemen, I'll bring it back to the board. We've got the applicants here to ask any additional questions. But again, it does seem as though there is some reasoning, logic, I'll say, of the proposed position, whether or not it's a true hardship and whether there could be some engineering, some grading. I don't have enough information for the exact location of the septic field, because I do think that because it's a non-conforming lot in terms of width, by bringing it the full 50 foot, it may be getting close to that septic field. I just don't know. But that would be something that I would consider as justification for moving it to the south and granting a variance. Anybody else have any comments or make any type of motion?
I think for the record, it should be noted that the house that is located on the property to the north of this, probably its garage and the existing house itself both are less than the 50-foot side yard setback.
Good point, Jim.
Even though, when they built the barn in the back, they, built it to the ordinance.
Correct. Yeah, you're right about that. The house is right up at the road and clearly favors the southern property line.
A lot of these structures out there were built probably prior to the zoning ordinances
I agree.
at the
I
time.
believe that house that's on the house that's north of us is a very old farmhouse.
Is it?
I have a
Yeah, they've been
feeling
there for
their families have been there for a long time.
generations, yeah.
He inherited the house,
Interesting.
so.
Probably at one point, they probably owned our property, and they probably
Yeah, they
eventually sold it off,
probably
I'm
did.
assuming.
That house is
Probably.
almost literally right on the road.
Yeah.
I see that.
Is there any leeway to try to move this a little further off the property line? I mean, it looks like the septic is on the 50-foot line according to Mr. Ward's survey, and it's leaving the whole center that's buildable open. And we're trying to put it over close to the
Helen, my
property line.
my situation, my response to that, and I'm just one thought here, it's hard for me to, I'll use the term arbitrarily, move it 4 feet or 5 feet or 10 feet, because I just don't have enough information about existing trees or topography or exact location of the field and so forth, although the field is indicated on the survey. So, again, I understand the applicant's reasoning and justification beyond financial. So to me, it would make sense to either put it as requested or have it conform to the ordinance. But I personally, unless we had additional information, couldn't justify moving it X amount of feet. Any other thoughts on that?
I think Ken had brought it up earlier, and I think he asked the petitioner, is there 1 foot, is there 2 foot, is there 5 feet? And their response was the farmer's row and such. I appreciate leaving as many trees as possible, but I'm sure you're barely gonna be able to see this building. You definitely won't be able to see it in the summer from anywhere. In the
No,
wintertime,
you won't be able to see it from the road.
the 2 neighboring houses, it might even be a tough stretch for them to see. It looks like there's some evergreens behind the house to the south. So it might be even a tough stretch for them to see it with the elevation change in the wintertime.
Yeah, we can barely
But
see the
it's-
neighbor's pole barn that's way out in the back from our back door. You
Yeah.
can barely see
Why
it
don't-
now.
At this point, we'll just kind of go back and forth here, and we'll come back to you with questions, just so we can kind of keep some order here.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Citing the existing non-conforming lot, that's giving them a tighter envelope than normal, obviously, for the zoning. So that is
Doesn't
obviously
help.
a hardship, correct? The septic field, the elevation changes and leaving the trees, not necessarily a hardship, but contributing factors. So, is there I'm sure there's 2 feet there. They couldn't have cut it that close, but, you know, if you wanna do that, or if you just wanna do it as posted, you know, either way, I would most likely be in support of it.
Alan, I may have cut you off. I don't know if you have additional thoughts or
No,
Ken or Jim?
I
No?
just think there's, without a topo to satisfy the needs of the request, and there's gonna have to be groundwork done for a level structure. I just feel we don't have enough information to give it a blanket approval. That's just my thoughts. I'm sorry, you know, I just feel that if
I
we're gonna
understand.
make statements about things, that we need to back it up with
Yeah,
facts.
I'm not sure what a topo
So,
is.
Ms.
I'll have to
Roth-
do some research.
Ms. Ross, a topo is a topographic survey.
Oh, okay.
So it's
okay.
basically, you know, the lines
Yeah,
that
I
say this
gotcha.
is
Okay.
a foot taller than this is a foot taller.
Yes.
So it would give, our board and the township information. Mr. Charles is an engineer, and so, you know, engineers are in the business, civil engineers are in the business to say, okay, this is
Right.
how the topography works, and so that's
Right.
what we're referring to as a topo. And why Mr. Auger's pointing that out is oftentimes one of the objectives of this board is to grant as small of a variance from the ordinance as possible typically. And so if we're able to look at a topographic survey, sometimes you'd say, boy, you know, we could move this forward 20 feet or move it back 20 foot or move it sideways and
Right.
have, you know, so
Well-
it's kind of a finer look.
Yeah, I just hate to spend all the money to get this very expensive type of,
Doesn't matter. I don't know.
well, I understand
Yeah.
that. I'm just
No, I-
making the comment of moving it, say, 2 feet.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like the 2
north
feet.
maybe, but not like 10 feet north. That would be, I mean,
That would- yeah,
again, it
that would-
doesn't matter, but how much work is involved or funds, but, you know, the 2 feet, there's probably maybe a few feet from where, you know, we had it surveyed where it could go north, like a few feet north, but to go like 5 to 10 feet though, is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
I mean, that's when you really start getting into that elevation change,
understood.
you know, so, and if it was flat, we probably wouldn't be here. We'd just put it in the middle of it, you know, but.
Right.
yeah, it
Um,
wouldn't be a problem, but,
We just had our old garden there, and from day one, when we ended up moving the garden, we just go, that's a perfect place to put a pole barn. It's already outlined and everything, 'cause it was a very large garden. So that's why we were always in, you know, again, with the drive, the way it would line up to the pole barn, it would just be a straight shot off the drive that's already there.
Right.
You know, so, that's why we didn't wanna go any further into the woods where there wouldn't be that elevation change so much back there, from north to south. It would be more east to west type of elevation change, but again, that's kinda far from the house, you know, we're talking
yeah. I'd like
probably
to
a
park my
couple
car.
hundred feet or something, you know.
Like to
Yeah,
park my
yeah.
car somewhere in the winter.
Summertime's not a big deal, but winter would be the hike to get back in the house.
Yeah.
Great. Why don't we bring it back to the board for either additional comment or potential motion?
So I'll try motion and see where it goes. Case 22-001, petitioner Tanya Ross requesting 2 variances. I motion that we grant a 20-foot side yard variance for request number 1, variance from section 5.06A4, table 5.06-2, and approve variance 2 as posted, the 35.21-foot lot width variance from section 4.09D, table 4.09, in order to construct their new pole barn, citing the lot width non-conforming as a contributing factor, the elevation change in topography in the rear yard as a factor, as well as trying to preserve as many existing trees to screen both neighbors. That's it.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
I would support that.
Before we go to a vote, Mr. Gale, I wonder if you would add to your motion, consider adding to your motion the requirement to have a staking survey completed so that it can be verified the location?
Yes, I'll accept the amendment of having the footings surveyed before construction of the barn.
Do we have support for the amendment?
Support?
And Ms. Ross, and just so you guys know what happened there, there's been a motion, your request was for a 22-foot variance. There's been a motion to grant a 20-foot variance, which would mean that it would be moved 2 foot closer north. And then stated a few reasons, including the narrow lot width of why this is an unusual circumstance in the township. And then what we added there at the end is a typical, in our township, to request as you put in your footings that you have those surveyed for the location to make sure that they are in fact no closer than that 20-foot variance from the property line.
Okay.
Okay, so once I have the footings, then I want to have it re-surveyed and then have you guys come back out and look at it?
You'd work, Brian, what would be the procedure with the township?
Well,
Just
we
so I
would,
understand.
the survey basically pins down the footings to verify that what their motion is actually where you placed it.
Okay,
Because if you were to happen to place the footings closer to the property line, you'd have to come back here.
right.
So this is just to verify that their wishes and their motion are what you actually built.
Right, okay.
Don't do it with the tape measure, just pay a company
Yeah,
a couple $100 to
You've
stake
already
it.
got
Yeah.
Mr. Ward out
Yeah,
there, so
yeah.
he'd be the guy that you
Yeah,
just tell him
okay.
to go do it.
okay.
So we've got a motion on the table. It has support. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Auger,
No, just because of inadequate information.
Mr. Epping,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Sharrow,
Yes.
and Mr. Zurek.
Yes.
So your motion passes. You'll need to work with your builder ultimately and with the township for permitting and stuff, but good luck.
Thank you
Great,
guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
your time.
Have a good night. Drive safe tonight.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, I will call case number 2, case number 22-002, Jeff and Marnie Chamberlain petitioners requesting 2 variances. The first being a 10-foot lot width variance for parcel number 1, and the second being a 237.44 foot quarter lot width to depth ratio for parcel number 2, both from section 4.06 within our ordinance, and this is for a split a proposed split property at 6232 Walden Road, which is now in the R1A single-family residential zoning, and this is really kind of a continuation or a result of a conditional rezoning that's recently happened at both the Planning Commission and at the Township Board, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain, you can give us your, although I just read it, if you could give us your name and your address, please.
Okay, Jeff Chamberlain. Address is 6232 Walden Road, Clarkston, 48346.
Okay, great. And if you could just walk us through kind of the history of this property, what your objective is, what's happened at the Planning Commission and the Township Board, and then what specifically we're requesting tonight.
Okay. This property here, it's actually a piece that we've had our eye on for quite some time. It just so happened we sold our house last March, and we were gonna look for property to build on, and 2 weeks after we moved into the condos right behind here to rent, that came on the market. So we bought it because it's set up perfectly for what we're proposing. I think it would actually be an asset to the community in pretty much every way. I don't see any negative to it. The little house in the front corner there, it's 100 years old. We fixed it up. It needed quite a bit. Fixed it up, cleaned it up. We have a tenant in there right now. The homes to, I guess, what would that be?
West?
No,
Patrick Court.
north, no, to the east.
Okay,
Or no, yeah, to the west, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
You're better at with your compass than I am. Those 2 lots there, one of them's 65 foot of road frontage, one's 63 foot of road frontage. The house across the street, which is very similar in age as well. There's just a little bunch of homes there that are all like those old homes and been there forever.
mm-hmm,
that had those narrow lots. This little home on our lot is exactly the same as them. So is what makes sense on this lot is to do what we're doing. So we had it rezoned to get as conforming as we can. And created a 15,000 square foot lot there for the little house. And if I walk up
Yep.
here, the 90 feet, I believe, do you have the survey
Yes.
in front of you? Okay. I believe the 90 feet for the little home here.
I can pull it
What are you messing with? No, actually, if you go back to the aerial,
up. Okay.
I can just see it better.
Whoop.
Yeah,
Just passed.
so the 90 feet really comes, there's an existing pad here. It really, and this home's got an existing fence as well. I mean, it's set up perfectly for the 90 feet to go right here, just like on the survey. And then that gives us actually 108 feet for our new lot. Really doesn't make any sense to give this house anymore, because we can use this as our driveway as well, it's already there. At some point, the county had that done, I
Right.
don't know when or what, but, because they paved it, the approach and everything, so, when they redid this road. There's really no other options, and it sets up for a perfect build site for right here, for our home. And that's what we're planning on doing. These two buildings here, they're very old, dilapidated, and pretty dangerous, actually. I mean, they're block.
If you could come back up to
Yeah,
the mic,
block
just so we can.
foundation.
There are two buildings there.
We're gonna be taking those down, for a couple of reasons. I would like to try to salvage one of them. I don't think we can. The foundation is dangerous. There's actually been people, kids, through the years coming in because it's got a whole lower level
Sure.
that you can walk in, and because I found all kinds of, beer cans and stuff that, none of us ever did when we were kids. So, it would be an advantage. The neighbor to the east, he's thrilled about it. He's like, "Are you gonna take those old bunkers down?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the plan." So we're gonna take those down. Keeping that old historic house is important to us.
Mhm.
We've been Clarkson residents our whole lives, 53 years. I like the history of it. It's a cute little house. So we want to maintain that as well and keep it up
Sure.
and looking nice for the community, and build a nice ranch there, which I
Okay.
have. I don't know if you want to see.
Well, before we get to that, because we are the zoning board, and we know you've been to the planning commission, so
Okay.
really, at the end of the day, we've got a really large lot. It's already been rezoned, it's already gone to the board and to the planning commission. This R1A zoning district requires 100-foot wide lots. Mathematically, your parent parcel is 198 foot, so really that becomes the issue, is you're a few feet short of just being able to split it and still not have to come to the ZBA. Typically, you'd want to make those as close to 100, or at least make one of them 100. You've explained why one would be 90 and one would be 108. Even at that point, you would still require a variance. I guess at this point, before we have Mr. Chamberlain provide additional information, I'd be interested to go to Brian, because you are on the planning commission, if you've got any history from a planning commission point of view of any discussion that might have happened there.
Yeah, the meeting was a few months ago, if I remember correctly. I know Mr. Carlisle was in support of it, saying it was the best use of the property. Really, the only other thing you could do is not approve the request and say you can only have one house there, but he could also develop it and put a cul-de-sac in there like some of the neighbors have done and get more lots in there, so the
Right.
density would increase. So I think pretty much the whole planning commission kind of came to a consensus that this was the best and lowest impact use of it. If you did put a driveway there and 3 or 4 lots, you'd have 3 or 4 families coming in and out of there. So
Sure.
you know, the lower impact of it. And I believe it was a unanimous vote as well.
And it looks to me, reading the minutes and seeing the packet, it looks like it was a conditional rezoning, meaning that you offered specifics to limit it to one additional house and so forth, and that went through the planning commission and went through the township board. Township board accepted that conditional rezoning, so it was previously R1R, it's now R1A, and it's kind of on its last stop here at the ZBA to essentially make that conditional rezoning workable from a lot width point of view, and then a little bit of a ratio issue as well, so.
Right.
Okay. Based on that, Alan, do you have any questions?
You just, one of your comments was that the boards approved one additional house, so that's one additional to what is existing. So just his
There's currently
new
one,
house.
there will be two, and there cannot be any
And
more
that's,
than two.
that's it, and that carries on. Nobody else can come back before
It
the
runs with the
ZBA
land.
and request.
And can you expand on that a little bit? What is requiring that? What is truly holding a future person from doing that?
So,
It's in the contract, the conditional rezoning contract. It's essentially a contract
So
between
it's
Mr.
ti-
Chamberlain and the township.
Okay, so it's tied to the title of the property then, or is it tied to what? It can't be tied to a person, can it?
It
No,
goes,
but
it
it's-
runs with the land.
Yeah, it runs with the land, so
Okay.
let's say, Mr. Chamberlain decides to sell it in the future, someone would have to go through the process of rezoning it all over again. Otherwise, they have to stick with the conditions that are in the rezoning. So, I mean, it affords the opportunity to, or maybe Mr. Chamberlain changes his mind and wants to do 4 lots or 3. Really, the development potential is 3 lots, and that includes the single-family home that's already there. So even if he wanted to do that, he would have to go through the process all over again to rezone it, or at least amend the conditional rezoning, which goes in front of the planning commission and the township board. So,
and just so to reiterate, it does run with the title or with the land, so,
correct.
you know, for generations, this will be a contract.
Yeah, and essentially, this ties this property up to one additional home, which will be their family home. So,
That was,
otherwise, he
thank you.
could come in and do, he could try to do a private road and splits and things like that, so. This locks down density.
Ken, any additional questions?
No, I think I'm okay. It would have been nice if it was a 200-foot wide lot, and just share, but, and you mentioned it looks like the 90-foot would kind of line up with an existing fence and
It just makes sense.
in this drawing, could you go to the drawing, the engineer?
Oh, me, or?
No,
Okay,
Brian.
all right.
And it looks like the approachway off the road is actually we're sure it's in the 108 foot part?
It's right here.
Right, yeah. So, it's clearly more than 5 foot over on the 108 property, I think, or, I don't know the ratio, it's gotta be maybe 10
There's
foot
2
over.
curb cuts, right? Yeah. And he'd use this one.
Yeah.
So I think I'm
Makes
I'm
sense.
okay with it.
Okay.
Yep.
Jim Sherrill, any additional questions or?
No, I think with
observations?
the effort that's been done before with the planning commission and the township board and the conditional zoning, it looks like a win for all characters.
Great. Brian, any?
One additional comment and possibly a question. The structures on there, running this in the past, we don't want vacant parcels with non-conforming structures on them. I don't know if it's appropriate or the board thinks it's appropriate to put a time limit or a small bond that he's got to demo them,
I was
maybe
gonna
this
bring that
spring,
back up.
some-
Good
I
point.
mean, I don't know what's appropriate.
Before CO or?
Was there
Yeah,
anything
if
in the
it's just-
conditional rezoning on that?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
If it's just a dilapidated block structure, it's not a whole lot of excavation, $5,000-6,000 demo job probably, but it should be gone, especially, he cited that he feels it's dangerous, so,
Good point.
that would be my only thing, if we could add a time limit on the demo of that.
time limit such as 6 months after construction of the new house?
No,
or
no, like
Immediately?
by this June 1st or May 1st, whatever,
Even
whatever
before
the board.
construction, in case construction's
Yeah,
here,
no, he
right?
can't get a building permit unless that thing's gone. It would be my vote,
Perfect.
yeah.
Make the motion.
Sounds like a motion, Brian.
Well, do we, if you don't mind, Mr. Chamberlain, do you have a problem with what we're saying here?
No, no, if we could, if you wanna put something in there, that we tear it down before construction starts or building permit, that's totally fine, cause it has to come down anyway, before that. As far as timing, you're not talking about like it's gotta be down regardless within 90 days or 6 months or.
Well, yeah, I
If
think,
the reason I'm asking is because I lost my job in November. So our plan was to start building this spring,
okay,
right? So I'm in the job hunt and we're hoping everything goes on as
Sure.
planned. But if it doesn't, then construction might be pushed off. So before, as long as, before we get the building permit or whatever, it's fine, that's coming down.
okay.
And just keep in mind that if they approve the variance, it's good for a year.
Okay,
So you have, and really this is about a lot split more than anything else.
right,
So, I mean, you have a year to essentially get the lot split done. So that gives you some time. So, but if you just tie it to, it's gotta come down before we issue a permit, that gives you as much time as you need.
Or
Well-
renewal.
Yeah,
Extension.
or an extension, yeah.
Yeah, or you can also, I can grant 6-month extensions.
okay.
Because if it becomes a dangerous structure, Brian would have to handle it through the building department, and the zoning is an unsafe structure, and get it removed like other structures have been removed in the township.
That's a compliance issue.
Right.
Okay.
I can't wait to hear your motion.
Yeah, I think so. I guess I'll make a motion in case 22-002, Jeff and Marnie Chamberlain petitioners requesting 2 total variants. I motion that we approve a 10-foot lot width variance for parcel 1 and a 237.44-foot quarter lot to width depth ratio for parcel number 2, both from section 4.06D, table 4.06, in order to complete the split of the property at 6232 Walden Road, citing that this would be the best use of the property. The owners have also agreed to only use this for 1 additional structure, which creates less density for the area, and also conditioned it that the old dilapidated structures on the property must be torn down before a building permit is issued for the property, or an extension of the variance approval is granted. That's it.
We have a motion, do we have support?
I'll
Would you
support.
add to it that the township board has entered into a contractual agreement that locks this in perpetuity with the land?
That's acceptable to me. That's fact.
Could I have support?
I'll support the motion.
Okay. We have a motion, if we could have a roll call, please. All right,
Yeah.
motion and support, we could have roll call?
Mr. Epping,
Yes.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Sherrill,
Yes.
Mr. Zurich,
Yes.
and Mr. Auger.
Yes.
Good luck, Mr. Chamberlain. Sounds like an exciting project, and we're looking forward to seeing a new home up there.
Yep, I just have to get a job.
There you go. Good luck with that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, drive carefully.
There's a few of them out there.
Yeah, it's help wanted signs down at Subway.
All right, gentlemen, we've concluded new business. We're moving on to approval of the minutes. We did not have a January meeting, so we are reviewing and approving the December 1st, 2021 minutes, which were in our packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the December 1st, 2021 minutes as presented.
I support. I think we had Mitch here. Ken, were you at the
No.
December? Okay. With that, we've got the support. Roll call all in favor of accepting the minutes. Say aye.
Aye.
Abstain? You're abstaining, Ken?
No,
You're not abstaining.
I'm not.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
All right.
I wasn't
It's up
paying
to you.
attention there.
It's up to you. At this point, our last item is discussion. Any discussion tonight, guys?
I think I was informed at might have been a planning commission meeting, that even if you weren't present at the meeting, you could watch the meeting and vote for the minutes based on your interpretations of the meeting. Did that happen at a
Not
planning
so
commission meeting?
Well,
I thought somebody said that.
I think there's been varying opinions legally on what
Okay.
you can do, and it's just for minutes, so it's,
I always abstain if I wasn't there.
I know, and pretty much in my entire career, that's what people have done.
Yeah.
Just to err on the safe
Safe
side,
side.
so either way, I'd rather just have you abstain, that covers it.
That's fine with me. I remember somebody
We never
bringing
run
that up.
into a problem where three people have to abstain, and we can't approve minutes.
Yeah.
So,
That would be the only scenario if there was only the minimum there.
yeah.
My only thought on that was because the only appeal to us is circuit court. The planning commission has a township board as an appeal.
That's true. So,
You know,
yeah, it's a little bit more
that would be
technical
my
here.
thought on it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Interesting.
I got a general question. What's the, I don't know, liability, or what's the pros and cons of one of us walking onto somebody's property? You know, I was half tempted to look at something, and I always stayed off the property.
You as a, part of the application is an affidavit that they essentially sign that allows you access to the property.
Okay,
Now, when you go on the property, you can't speak to them about the case. I mean, certainly you can say hi, but
right.
you cannot speak about the particulars of the case, but you have every right to drive up the driveway if you need to. You know, especially with like Mrs. Ross's property that's so deep, you know, you probably need to drive in there and get a look and feel for the land. It's a little tough with snow, but, you know, at least in the summertime, you can get up there and see what you need to see. But yeah, you have every right, and
Okay.
it states in the application that they sign off on you doing that.
Do you have your township ID that, has Brian made you one?
I don't
He
know.
probably should have an ID tag.
Yeah, so I can get you one. We'll take that.
What I've done in the past is do have an ID tag, which I don't think I've used, but generally I like to let people obviously know,
No,
especially
yeah.
if you have to go deep into their property, that we're there, or there's no dogs or whatever the case. But of course, everybody's friendly and tempted to just, on a neighborly way, almost explain what they want. And so I said, okay, just, you know, I've got the information, I'll take a look and try and limit the conversation to that
Right.
and make an evaluation. But it does help. I think, Alan, you've always been very, very good about going to properties, and it gives you good insight.
I clip it onto my
Oh,
dash
yeah,
vent and leave it right there, and then I either clip it on my coat or put it around a collar in the summertime and wear it like a building official, so that at least it's something, you know, because the solicitors in the township have to register with the clerk and have an ID on them if they come to your door. And when they come to my door, because I'm right on White Lake Road, I say, where's your ID? You don't have one? Okay, I'm calling the sheriff, you're casing my place. And they're gone. I mean, whoever's got the car comes immediately and picks them up.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Great. Any other additional discussion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:54.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.